What's up, everyone? This is Bacon, and today we're going to be talking about the new hypogen hero, Framton. So, Framton is a hypogen hero. Let's go ahead and take a look at him. He came out at the same time or just before the release of Temporal Rift, so I think he's kind of overshadowed with all the talk of going on around that, but I do want to give him his time to shine. So, Framton is a hypogen agility hero. He's a warrior, and he does continuous damage based on his role that is assigned to him in the game. As always, those don't really matter that much, but I just like going over those. So Framton is an interesting hero. He was pretty solid in Classic on release, and he's actually received a decent amount of buffs. And so we're going to go over a sheet that was updated and released by Silas and Shodis in a little bit, just because it breaks down everything a lot easier, and it's not as tedious as reading through all of this stuff. But I think he's a hero that will be pretty solid in the Hypogean faction. I think he's a hero that will be good with, if there is a Hypogean tower released, he'll be really good in that. I think campaign, he might help people push, especially if you're kind of a late, campaign pusher. I think he could be really solid. If you were to get him early on, he could be helpful then too. But he's a hero that I think is, that's kind of his bread and butter. Maybe some forked fate action as well. I don't think he's going to be super good with, like, I don't know, guild boss, stuff like that. Dream Realms, he might be, might fit in from here and there, but I also don't think, based on his kit, that he's going to be someone who thrives in Dream Realms. I do think there could be some interesting PvP teams that he's made up of too, especially like a Hypogean team. Obviously, I would never recommend fully committing to a Hypogean or Celestial hero until we for sure know that they're really strong or they're really busted or they're going to be really good in different areas. One thing to also note that's now that Temporal Rift is released, there will probably be a little bit of tweaks with how important certain heroes are because they will have value in Temporal Rift as well. So that might kind of affect overall tier list in the future. But as of right now, I think we're pretty safe to just kind of leave things how they are. Not make any drastic changes in that regard, especially because Temporal Rift is so new in Companions. But let's go ahead and take a look at the comparison chart to see how his stuff differs, and then we'll take a look at his actual kit. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at the differences between the Companion version and the Classic version of Framton. You can see here a little bit of a nerf, I guess, to the damage here. But one thing to note is the attack buff cap is 45% versus the 30%, and so a little bit of a trade-off there. Burning Vengeance, his other ability, has a little buff here in both the per hit damage and the final strike damage, so that is nice. And then a little bit of buff on the last ones. This one's all around got a little buff. And then we go to the Fist of Fate. Little bit of a nerf, I guess, in the first line, but then everything else looks pretty much like a buff. Minus the shield value is a little bit less, but these two middle ones, you got a little buff there. So it's kind of a pull and give with these. And when we go ahead and look at here, burst damage is a little bit less. The healing prevention is longer. And then the trigger behavior once per battle on fatal damage looks like it's been kind of tweaked a little bit, but overall, nothing too dramatic. Now, I think overall there's a little bit of pushing and giving with the skills as far as things have been buffed, things have been nerfed, but I think overall this is a positive for him in the sense of does he have a buff or a nerf overall? I think it's a net positive. I think he's probably a little bit stronger, you consider him, than in Classic. Let's go ahead and look at his signature item. Damage reduced 15% for 6 seconds can be stacked. So the percentage and the amount of time, that's nice. This at signature item 10. Higher percentage, higher second. Heal for 150% defense can be triggered 3 times every 2 seconds. Triggered 4 times every 2 seconds. So this signature item 20 part is a little bit less. And then at 30, attacks reduced enemies' tenacity by 20 for 6 seconds, cap 3 times, and then it's a little bit less on the Classic version. So you can see there's some things that are a little bit tweaked, but I feel like a lot of the things that have been nerfed are very slight nerfs, and the things that have been buffs are a little bit more significant or in parts of his kit that are more important overall. And then you can see the divinity of the furniture. In Classic, you have furniture. In Companions, you have the divine effect. So it looks a little different here. but you can see here how they might look a little different. It's hard to kind of line these up hand in hand, but you can see like right here at 9 out of 9, pretty much the same thing. At 1, you don't really see it here. At 3, unlocks Flaming Fist upgrade, triggers on fatal damage. I mean, there's just kind of a little bit trickier to kind of compare things here, but I think you get a little more juice over here compared to the classic furniture. So I think overall he's going to be stronger than classic. I think he will, because of the state of hypogenes just not being insane at this point. I think he will add some value to the hypogene faction, making them a little more comparable to Celestials as far as which one is better. And I think what makes Framton fun is that he basically goes to the person in front of him, teleports or whatever, and then so he has kind of like that back line ability, which I think is fun and necessary with different PvP comps, especially because you can kind of tweak things a little bit more and have them a little more complex and not just the same old thing. So he adds a little bit of a uncertainty factor for certain teams, and so I think Framton will be really valuable in PvP and campaign for those who are pretty late game and can afford him. To be honest, these take a long time to build, so I don't know if this is gonna be for everyone, but I think he's on a good direction as far as whether or not he will be viable. But like every hero, I say wait, let people test him, let's see how he is. Let people who can actually build him out completely and use him, see how well he performs in different areas, and then make a decision, especially because he's a hypogene and you don't want to waste your stargazing cards. But wait till we actually have a full idea of whether or not it's worth pulling for Framton. So let's go ahead and look at Framton in action. Let's go to his Arena of Trials. Let's do a few battles, see how he does, see just his abilities and actions. I think sometimes it's just nice to actually be able to see what a hero does. So I did this on my other account already, and these are actually like some tricky ones. There's some hard ones in here. I'm gonna put him here, so hopefully he goes towards Gwyneth and messes her up, and then we're gonna just toss these in here. So let's go ahead and see how he does. Let's get rid of the ×4. You see teleports back here. Basically messes her up. And then when he does his ultimate, he's going to pull people up. There you go. Pulls them up, pulls them down, boom. And the more people he gets in that kind of pull up, he gets more buffs from that, because he does get some buffs from that. And he also does have some sustainability in his kit as far as damage reduction and healing. So that is nice. Let's go ahead and put him in the middle so he attacks Khazard. You see he's right here. Boom, teleports. He's in the middle of everyone, so that's probably a good thing. I didn't look at his damage last time, but I think we'll see some pretty good damage here too. And then he's messing up Mezoth over here. Let's go ahead and just ×4 that. Now let's look at his damage. See, he's doing the most damage ahead of Khazard and Gwyneth. So pretty impressive there at a first glance. I think you can see the value where he'd come in with PvP, though, where you can just kind of move him to focus the big damage on the other team. And it looks like he's bursting these heroes pretty quickly. Like, the Gwyneth and Khazard died pretty fast. Let's go ahead and try this one more time against Merlin. Let's just throw some beefy boys in there and let this roll. Boom. Merlin's health is he's already pretty much dead. Besides his passive, which I think should keep him alive. Yeah, you can see him right there flying around. Little owl. He's back. Now, one thing I see here and I'm noticing is he doesn't really get his ultimate off very much. Let's see if we can count how many times he does. Still no ultimate. He does have some shielding, which is nice. So, I mean, he didn't even get his ultimate there, but he's still doing 25. So, you can see here where he would be Pretty fun to use, pretty valuable. Let's just toss these guys in here. But one thing that I'm unsure of is everyone's dying so fast. Maybe it's just because these teams just aren't as strong. Maybe against harder teams, he would find more value in being able to use his ultimate. But he's really not being able to use his kind of like big things, which, I mean, if everyone's dead, doesn't really matter. But, there is some excitement about sending him right in the middle and then using his ultimate on everyone or as many people as he can. I think it affects those directly in front of him, so that does limit who you can get. Let's go ahead and just put on ×4. Boom. I mean, these teams are dying really fast. Not just because of Framton, but in general. So yeah, that's Framton. Let's go ahead and just take a look at him. Where's the dummy? I thought it was this. Yeah, let's do this real quick just to see. You see his little gauge here. That's his I don't know what they call it, Fury. You saw him. He just knocked up 2 people though, which is cool. See, he's doing his punches too. I mean, he's got a cool kit. I like Framton. I like what he does. I wish I could get him at a more reasonable price. But that's Framton, y'all. Thank you guys for watching. Hopefully this is helpful. If you guys have already pulled for him, I'm curious what your experience has been like. Share it in the comments if you have. And as always, hope you have a great rest of your day. Peace.